I was 8 years old the first time I saw Glacier National Park, and I couldn't believe it was a real place. For me, that's the first reason to move to Montana, and I'm not going to be neutral about that. You know how you look at pictures of Glacier and figure somebody must have edited them? Then you see it in person and it's better than the pictures. The light coming off those sharp peaks, snow still sitting up top in the middle of summer, wildflowers everywhere, mountain goats out atop the rocks. It's really something. Glacier National Park is the most beautiful country in the States, and it's where I fell in love with Montana. And I want to be honest, because where I live in Bozeman, it's beautiful, but it cannot touch the beauty of the Flathead. Which brings up the question I get asked a lot. If I believe that, why do I live 6 hours south of Glacier? I'll get to that, because the answer is the same thing that decides whether somebody who moves to Montana is still here in 5 years. Glacier National Park is Montana's headline, and the land is the first of three things I want to walk you through. It sits up in the northwest corner of the state, and Yellowstone's North Gate is also 90 minutes from my front door down on the south side. Two of the most famous places in the country in one state, both close enough for a weekend trip. So what does that get you on a normal Saturday? A huge amount of Montana is public land, and public means it's yours to use. No membership, no reservation, no friend with a gate code. You need a truck, a free morning, and then you're out in the country that would be somebody's private estate almost anywhere else. Then there's the water, and one law that makes a Montana river different from a river anywhere else in the country. The stream access law says that the public can use the rivers and streams up to the ordinary high water mark, no matter what's happening up on the banks. So a river running through a private ranch is still a river you can float and fish. Try that almost anywhere else in the country, and you'd be trespassing. The last piece of the land is the seasons, because out here, they behave like four different places. Fall turns the valleys gold, and the elk are on the move. And then winter puts you in skis close to home. Spring puts you hiking in a snow squall, which can sound terrible, but it's actually one of my favorite things in the world. There's just so much about the land that's hard to capture, so you really just have to experience it yourself. The second thing is the money, because everything I just described comes at a cost that surprises people. Taxes are where it starts, and the tax you feel every week is the one Montana doesn't have. There's no general statewide sales tax here. So what does that do to a household? An appliance, a set of tires, a Saturday run to the hardware store, all of it rings up at the sticker price. And if you're coming from a state charging 8 or 9% sales tax, you feel that difference every month. A few resort towns run a local tax on some purchases, so this isn't 100% universal. But for most of what you buy in the state, the number on the tag is the number that you pay. Property taxes are the other half of the tax picture, and they've moved around in the last couple of years. So you do need to run your county's average instead of just looking at a statewide average. Then there's the price side, and this is where people can get this state wrong. Can a normal person still buy in Montana? What most people miss is that Montana isn't one market. It's at least 6. Gallatin County, where I work and live, is the most expensive of them. The Flathead runs its own cycle up around Whitefish and Kalispell. Missoula sits below both of those. Then you have Billings, Great Falls, and the small towns to the east, where your money goes a lot farther than almost anybody watching this would guess. And the last piece of the money side is the one that really decides it for most of my clients. And that's the difference between what you earn and what it costs to live here. Montana wages run below the national average. So if you're earning a national salary and paying Montana costs, you have a gap working in your favor every month. Where it falls apart is when somebody shows up with no income plan and starts hunting for a local job at local wages to cover a house that got priced by somebody else's remote paycheck. That difference is the most important number in your whole plan, and it's worth being honest with yourself about which side of that you're actually in. So that's the land and the money related to Montana. The third thing is the life. And it's the one that decides where in the state you actually end up. Land and numbers can both check out, and you can still end up in the wrong part of Montana. That's a piece I know something about, because I lived in the wrong place before I picked the right one. I've been coming to Montana since I was 7 or 8 years old. That was Glacier and the Flathead mostly, but my family had lived in Missoula before that. So from about 15, I was over on that side pretty regularly. Then between 18 and 21, I lived up in the Flathead around Kalispell. So when I tell you that that area is phenomenal, I'm not just saying that. Glacier is out the back door, Flathead Lake, the whole northwest corner, everything I believed about that place at 8 years old, I still believe now. But when I lived there, the winter got to me. So what does a Flathead winter actually feel like? It's long and it's dark. That valley sits under cloud coverage for stretches that run weeks or even months at a time. The inversion settles in, and then the sun goes away in a way I had never experienced before. I didn't have a word for it at 20. All I knew was that by February, I was depleted. Missoula is a different animal too. It's a university town, so it has a lot of the same energy Bozeman has, with a real bohemian vibe to it. Real music scene, a river running right through the middle of it, a downtown people spend tons of time in. If you'd asked me at 21 where I'd end up in Montana, I would have said Missoula, or maybe the Flathead, and I would have been absolutely sure about it too. The strange part is what happened next. As a kid, I had never once been over to the Bozeman side of the state. I'd even asked family what was over this way, and somehow we just never visited. When I finally made the move in 2016, I packed everything into my dad's garage in Orange County, and I landed here for the one reason that isn't very romantic. I had some family here on a work contract, I came to visit, and I didn't think I'd actually stay. But two things kept me here. The energy in this valley is the first one. It's a college town with a lot of people who left bigger cities to be here. And almost everybody you meet chose that on purpose. You can feel that in a coffee shop or at a restaurant. Real sun, real snow, with blue overhead on a scale I had never seen up north. Now, that probably sounds like a small thing next to a national park, but here's how it really works for me. Glacier is somewhere I get to a handful of times a year, but winter light is something I live in for 5 months or more. I pick the one that shows up every morning. Which brings me back to the question I opened with and why I don't live anywhere near Glacier now. Almost nobody who ends up leaving Montana leaves because of Montana. They go because they picked the wrong valley for who they are. Somebody who needed sun ended up somewhere dark. A family that needed a real job market landed 2 hours from one. Somebody that wanted a more mild winter chose somewhere where it can be brutal. Plenty of people come here looking for the space and the quiet, and then they buy in the busiest county in the state. So moving here is really two decisions stacked on top of each other, and most people only make the first one before they commit. Pick the Glacier area in Flathead Lake, and you're picking the best scenery in the state along with the darkest winters in it. Pick Missoula, and you're picking a softer, artsier version of the college town, but at a friendlier price. Pick Gallatin Valley, and you're picking the sun, but also the busiest airport in Montana with the strongest job market around and the highest prices to go along with it. Obviously, I'm biased toward that last one because I live here, I work in it, but honestly, it does cost more than the alternatives. What you get for that is light in February and enough going on economically that your plan doesn't hang on a single employer. So who does this move go badly for? There's a few groups from what I've watched. Anybody who moves on the scenery and then runs their numbers afterwards is part of that group. You make that leap without a financial plan and it can backfire. Another one is distance. Montana might look compact on a map to some people, but it's the 4th largest state in the country. A specialist appointment, a major airport, a real grocery run, any of those things can be a serious drive depending on where you land. And then the final group are the people that come in the summer and fall in love. And I can't blame them because that's also how I fell in love with Montana. But there's a real seasonality that if you only come in the summer, you don't experience the winter. So these are the things that wear on people, and you want to know where you are before you fall in love with a home. If you're serious about all of this, please come in February. Anybody can love Montana in July. So where you land in the state determines your weather, your drive times, your job market, and what your house is worth in the next 10 years. There's a lot riding on this decision, and most people should make it before you start looking at homes. I'm Chase Heiland, a real estate advisor and broker here in Bozeman. I made this move myself back in 2016. Now, I help busy professionals build a move that grows their money and fits their life. That's why I created the Montana Move Method, and it's how I guide people through it. I put together a free relocation guide that covers this whole move, the numbers, the areas, and the timing. There's a link in the description along with a link to book a call if you want to talk through your specific situation. And if you're listening, look up Live in Bozeman because I have all this information on my website too. Before you go, let's start a conversation. Tell me in the comments which part of Montana you're looking at and what's holding you up. And if the Gallatin Valley is the one area you keep circling back to, watch this next video for my 10 reasons for moving to Bozeman. There's a reason in there I saved for last on purpose because it decides whether your money builds something out here or sits in a house doing nothing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.